You're listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC Vegas 74, Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi, which takes place this upcoming Saturday, June 3rd, after a week off from UFC and mixed martial arts action. I guess only UFC because we did have LFA fights this past weekend. And then in the co-main event, you have a banger in the featherweight division between martial arts based striker, or should I say traditional martial arts based striker, coming off of a head kick knockout against Julian Juicy J. Erosa, and Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres taking on grappling ace and overall just dog and warrior inside that cage, Killer Be Killed, in Daniel Pineda. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody, today we're breaking down UFC Vegas 74, Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi, or Kara France versus Albazi. This is a great card. I think that this card is kind of getting underappreciated in my opinion, because even though there's not the craziest name value, you still have very solid martial artists. You have very high level matchups. I mean, the main event between the number 3 ranked Kai Kara France and number 7 ranked Amir Albazi, this is a great fight. It's a great technical matchup. You've got a guy in Albazi who has good power on the feet. He showcased his knockout ability, good submission attempts, good counter takedown ability, top control, grappling presence. And you have Kai Kara France, who coming out of City Kickboxing is going to have clean combinations, multi-shot combinations, good changing of the tempos, good low kicks, good shots to the body, and overall vastly improved takedown defense and get-up game if he does get taken down to the ground. I think this is one of the highest level matchups you could see in the flyweight division. It's a huge step up in competition for Albazi in his UFC career, but at the same time, I like what I've seen from Amir Albazi. I like his finishing upside. I like his overall well-rounded game, but this is a big step up for him. But we'll obviously get to the main event when we get to that part of the breakdown. And then the number 15 ranked Alex Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. Pineda coming in as like a plus 150 underdog. I think he started closer to plus 200. In his last fight, he was almost a 3-1 underdog against Tucker Lutz. It was a back and forth battle, a dog fight, and Pineda was able to get the upper hand, out scrambling Tucker Lutz, wearing him out, and eventually submitting him in that spot. That's a spot where I did back Daniel Pineda in the betting side and in the betting market. Backing him against Caceres, backing him against the last dragon, Bruce Leroy. Show enough is a little bit of a different story. So we'll get to that breakdown as well. You got Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. Gordon's obviously coming back. A very quick turnaround. Could be too quick in some people's opinions after getting that headbutt TKO no contest to Bobby King Green. But in a fight where Gordon looked good, he was catching him with his boxing. Gordon has a very educated boxing game, very good footwork, good counter ability, and one of the best left hooks in the game, which he showcased against Paddy Pimblett in a razor-thin decision loss at UFC 282, and was also showcasing it against Bobby Green, where he was outstriking Green, he was outlanding him, he was countering him very well, and Bobby Green's a guy who's notoriously difficult to get reads on, notoriously difficult to get the timing down, and, more things like that. And then you've got fights like Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. We'll get to that and the whole Tim Elliott saga when we get there. Karine Silva versus Ketlin Souza. Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus the returning Elizio Zaleski dos Santos. There are some fights we're not going to break down. This will, for the most part, be a full card breakdown, but we're not going to be talking about the Malarkey and Muhamjan Naimov fight, and we're not going to be talking about Muin Gafarov versus John Castaneda, just because it was so late notice that it's kind of at the point where I want to break down every fight on the card, but I've already put so much time into tape studying these other fights where I feel like we should just cover those. And since these were late notice replacements, and I think Jamie Malarkey was going to have a different opponent and then another opponent, and now this is like his 4th opponent for this card. It's either his 3rd or 4th opponent, as he was originally going to be fighting Garam Kutateladze. I was very high on the Kutateladze side. I was going to back him. I had him in a bunch of parlays that I had placed early in the week. And, obviously that didn't happen. Garam Kutateladze, I think, is a story of a fighter that could be, but not a fighter who is. He has that decision win over Mateusz Gamrot, handing Gamrot his only loss in the UFC, aside from that loss to Beneil Dariush. And I just think that Garam Kutateladze, a training partner of Hamzat Chimaev, is a very, very solid fighter. But at this point, I don't know what is going to happen to him. And I don't know when we're going to see him back in the cage. You have the rebooking of Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Daniel Santos, which I'll cover a little bit. But if you really want to get a breakdown of the Munoz Jr. and Daniel Santos fight, I would go back and look at my UFC 288 predictions and listen to my breakdown of the fight, because it hasn't changed. Obviously, the fight got canceled the day of or day before UFC 288. I think it was day of, when Daniel Santos had to pull out due to an injury. I know John Castaneda was originally set to take on Mateus Mendonca, and I was very high on the Mendonca side, especially as an underdog. I was planning to back him and back him pretty heavily. Obviously, that fight is no longer happening, and now we get Muin Gafurov, but I didn't do any tape study on that fight. So like I said, we're going to be skipping that one along with the Jamie Malarkey and Muhammadjan. Well, yeah, am I saying that right? Hold on. Muhammadjan Naimov. Sorry, I wasn't pronouncing it right. Muhammadjan Naimov. But the other fights on the card we are going to break down. So getting into it, let's get back on track with UFC action, baby. And we're going to start off in the light heavyweight division in a battle between Felipe Lins and Maxime Grishin. I'm not going to go into superlatives. I'm not going to go into last fights. I'm not going to go into, the extensive tale of the tape in this fight. But what I will say is the more technical fighter in this fight is 100% Maxime Grishin. He's going to have the better grappling. He's going to have the better work inside the clinch. He's going to have the more technical striking game. I expect Grishin to use that light on the feet, outside fighting style, jab, check hook, front kicks to the body. He likes to pair up a front kick to the body, go with a front kick up top to the head, inside and outside low kicks. He's very good off the lead hand and very good off the pivots on the lead foot. If this is a point fighting style of matchup, then I would side with Maxime Grishin over Felipe Lins. I think he definitely would win a point fighting style of fight. I think more than likely, if the fight does go to decision, it would be that Maxime Grishin is outpointing him. He's landing the cleaner shots. He's landing the better combinations, and it's going to be more of Felipe Lins having trouble tracking him down, pushing him up against the cage, and finding the areas where he can unload his volume striking, he can unload his big power, and things like that. If it's going to be Grishin fighting on the outside, if it's going to be Grishin being able to dictate the range and fight on the outside, you get on his bicycle, using lateral movement, using the pivots, using the check hooks as Felipe Lins tries to crash into the pocket, then I do think that Maxime Grishin would win that style of fight. However, in Felipe Lins' last fight, you saw him knock out Ovin St. Peru. Now, again, it's Ovin St. Peru. I bet on Felipe Lins in that fight because I knew the type of fighter that Ovin St. Peru was at this point in his career. He's pretty much a walking punching bag. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that based on what we've seen from him in his recent performances in his career. So, yeah, he got a knockout. Yeah, he landed vicious combinations. He poured the pressure on, got in his face, and made it a dirty, nasty fight and unloaded combinations on St. Preux and got him out of there in round one. If Felipe Lins can fight inside the pocket, if he can fight at boxing range, right inside the clinch range, and make this a dirty fight, dirty boxing, single collar clinch, knees to the body, uppercuts, push Maxime Grishin up against the cage in the over-unders, rough him up with knees to the thigh, knees to the body, strikes off the clinch, strikes off the break in the clinch, I should say, then I think Felipe Lins wins this fight, no pun intended. I think that he has the better finishing upside. Like I said, I think if it goes to decision, it would be on the side of the more defensively responsible and technically aware Maxime Grishin. But if it's inside range, if it's dirty boxing, if it's clinch, if it's a dirty drag-em-out war, I have to favor Felipe Lins there, and that's why I'm going to go with the underdog. I think he finds a way to close the distance against Grishin, which we've seen before. I think he might push him up against the cage in the over-unders and be able to control him there, but land big strikes off the break, land uppercuts inside the clinch, elbows over the top, and unload his combinations if he's able to push Maxime Grishin up against the cage. If he's able to get him past that second black line, back him up and unload combinations, I think Felipe Lins has the knockout upside. He has the punching power and he has the ability. Finishing upside, Felipe Lins. Decision upside, more technical fighter, Maxime Grishin. More well-rounded fighter, Maxime Grishin. But I'm going to go with the finishing upside and the power in the strikes of Felipe Lins. He also has really trimmed himself down and got into phenomenal shape after originally being in pretty decent shape, but kind of a softer body type, I would say. And after his last fight with Ovince St. Preux, it seems like he's really put things together. So I am going to go with the underdog at plus 115 in Felipe Lins. I do not like the betting upside, though, because I could just as easily see Grisham being able to fight at the range he wants to, using those pivots, fighting at the outside range, fighting at kicking range or just outside of it, and picking apart Felipe Lins in a point fighting style, potentially getting a finish later on. But I think the volume, the power punching, the overall aggressiveness, and the fighting inside the clinch and making it a dirty fight in dirty boxing range, I guess you could say, in clinch range, dirty boxing style, I'm going to go with Felipe Lins. So give me the plus 115 underdog in Felipe Lins to defeat Maxine Grisham via a third round TKO. I'm going to side with an underdog in the first fight of the night. Up next, we're going to look at a fight between Luan Lacerda and Damon Blackshear. This is a pretty interesting one, and it's pretty coin flip oriented. I feel like I see a lot of people riding heavy on Lacerda. I see some people backing the wrestling and the power striking of Damon Blackshear. We've seen in the UFC career of Damon Blackshear against Farid Basharat. He lost that fight. He tired out in the third round, but early on, he was landing some big punches. He was getting inside the clinch, landing good trips from the body lock, getting the takedowns on Farid, controlling him from the top position. The wrestling and control in this fight is going to be on the side of Damon Blackshear. He's the better wrestler. He's going to have the better top control, the better hip pressure, the better ability to control if the fight hits the mat, but only from the top position. Luan Lacerda is a training partner of Jose Aldo, and he fights similarly to a guy in Aldo. Do I think he has the same ability of an Aldo? No, I don't. But Luan Lacerda is known as a jiu-jitsu artist. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt and a very decorated Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. In saying that, we're going to pull up the card on SureDog really quick. Give me 1 second so I can tell you how many of the wins of Luan Lacerda's career have actually come by submission. He's 12-2 in his mixed martial arts career. He lost once by submission, lost once by decision, but 10 out of his 12 victories come by way of submission. 2 wins by decision, never gotten a knockout in his career, but he has a variety of submissions as well. He's got rear naked choke, heel hook, guillotine choke, triangle choke, anaconda choke, arm bar. I mean, you name it, this guy has got the submissions in his MMA career, and he's known as a very solid black belt. But in his UFC debut, and a very tough debut against Cody Stamann, a tested veteran in the UFC, he showcased his striking ability. And the only thing I don't like against a guy like Damon is that he likes to fight out of that kind of shoot the box style, but not that he's so aggressive, more that he likes to just high guard and avoid the punches and avoid the damage and come back on decent counters. But sometimes he has trouble letting his hands go, which can get him behind on the volume, and that's the reason he lost that fight to Cody Stamann. His volume isn't the best, but when he did start to pick up the volume, when he started to pick up the combinations, he has very solid front kicks to the body, inside and outside low kicks, good body shots. He's got very good body work, right hand, left shot to the body. The 1-2 is very good, and he likes to step off to that rear side angle that we've talked about on the podcast before, where if you're orthodox versus orthodox, you can slip inside the jab, come over the top with the overhand right, but you can also step back and then cut an angle, either with an angle step or just a side step, get off to that rear side angle and be able to come over the jab at a better angle and throw that overhand right, throw that straight right hand, follow up with a left hook, straight right hand, then dig that left shot to the body. He's very good at landing combinations on the rear side angle, but the bread and butter for this guy is the back control, the submissions, the takedowns. But we didn't see much of that in his UFC debut, and he did very well striking against Stamann. Tough first round, but at the end of the first round, he was picking up the timing and being known as a grappler and showcasing your striking. And when he wanted to resort to his wrestling and jiu-jitsu, he was able to take down Cody Stamann and control him from the backside position, from the backside, from the backpack position, from that backside control position, get the hooks in and make Cody Stamann not really be able to do much of anything on the ground. Knowing that, I think his striking will improve again. And going up against Damon Blackshear, maybe we see him use his wrestling defensively and be able to strike it out with Damon on the feet. I hear some people saying that Damon Blackshear is the better striker. I think that he has the bigger power, but I think the more technical striker in terms of a boxing sense and mixing it up with that Thai style of combinations and more Thai style oriented combinations is Luan Lacerda. I think Lacerda is the more technical striker, even though he's not known as a striker. And Damon Blackshear is a heavy wrestler. He's got good takedowns, very good power. If he gets in on your hips, he's got very good hips, good takedown, good pressure, good ability to control from the top, but he does slow down. And in the third round against Cody Stamann, Luan Lacerda was able to push the pace, was able to get the takedowns, was able to control and win that third round. Second round, very close. First round was close as well, even though Lacerda poured it on in the ending of that first round. Like I said, I think the bigger power is Damon Blackshear. I think the better wrestling overall is Damon Blackshear, the better takedowns, but the better jiu-jitsu, the better scrambling ability, the more technical striker, the overall better counter fighter, I think is Luan Lacerda. And I think you saw that in the fight against Cody Stamann. He did have a good showing against Basharat, did Damon Blackshear, but he tired out in the third round. And knowing that he tires out, I don't think he's going to be able to get Luan Lacerda out of there. And I think that, maybe he can catch Lacerda and hurt him, but Lacerda's he's never been knocked out. He's only been submitted, and then he lost one decision. I don't think that Damon has the power to really put out Luan Lacerda, even though he is hittable. So I think the longer the fight goes, Lacerda is going to get more comfortable. I think we'll see him resort to more of his jiu-jitsu game in this fight than we did against Stamann, because there really wasn't any jiu-jitsu or wrestling from Lacerda until the third round, like we talked about. And I'm going to go with Luan Lacerda. I think he's going to be able to slow down Damon Blackshear. We saw in his UFC debut that he did slow down in that third round. He got controlled, got out wrestled later in the fight. And I think that's what we're going to see from here. And with the dangerous jiu-jitsu of Lacerda, like I said, 10 out of his 12 wins coming by way of sub, I think Luan Lacerda lands some big shots on the feet, really works those body kicks, but he's going to have to be careful because he doesn't want Damon to catch the kicks and use that to go into his wrestling game. But I am going to pick Luan Lacerda to win this fight via decision. I could see a submission finish as well, but I think he just outstrikes Damon, gets a big third round, and the first two rounds are going to be close, but Lacerda is going to have the bigger moments. He's going to resort to his wrestling a little more and be able to out-scramble Damon Blackshear, and I think he wins a decision. So give me Luan Lacerda to defeat Damon Blackshear via 29-28 unanimous decision as the minus 140 favorite. Up next is going to be a women's strawweight fight between Elise Reed and Jinyu Frey. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this fight, but what I will tell you is that I am going to side with the plus 115, 11-8 fighter in Jinyu Frey. Would I recommend you betting on this fight? No. From any perspective, I would not bet on this fight. And I don't really like to bet on women's MMA for the most part unless it's the highest level or just outside of the highest level, because a lot of women's MMA is a coin flip. A woman could look great. A fighter could look great in this one fight and look like a world beater, come back in the next fight and look like complete dog shit. So you really never know. But in this fight, what I've seen is that I think Jinyu Frey is more composed on the feet. I think she's better and more technical when it comes to mixing up the shots on the feet. Now, at the same time, she did get knocked out early in the first round. I believe it was against Vanessa Demopoulos. I could be wrong, but she got, let me check that actually. Poliana Viana, I'm sorry. So I was wrong. She got knocked out 47 seconds into the first round in her last fight in November of 2022. It's now May, so we've got about 7 to 8 months since that KO loss. I think that's better than what we're going to talk about later with Jared Gordon, but she did get knocked out viciously. I mean, it was multiple punches, multiple shots, knocked out cold, just vicious barrage of combinations, or a barrage of a combination from Poliana Viana. Before that, loses a split decision to Vanessa Demopoulos, who I picked to win her last fight against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and I was proven wrong in that fight, and by a pretty large margin. Before that, wins a unanimous decision over Ashley Yoder, wins a unanimous decision over Gloria De Paula. The thing about this fight is I think that Jinyu Frey is the more technical fighter. She seems more comfortable on the feet than Elise Reed. She seems more composed. And I think that Elise Reed is decent. She has a good right hand. She has good power in the right hand. So if you're thinking that Jinyu Frey is very chinny and that she's going to be able to get knocked out, 3 out of her 8 losses do come by KO, 1 submission loss, 4 decisions. So out of 8 losses, she's been finished half the time at 4 losses by finish, 4 by decision. But at the same time, like I said, I think Jinyu Frey is better and more composed at range. I think she can use her wrestling and grappling to be able to control Elise Reed from the top position, be able to float over into better positions. Now you're going to say, well, Elise Reed fought Loma Lookboonmee and she was able to out scramble her. She was able to reverse her even after getting taken down. She worked from the top position, took the back, was able to get both hooks in, almost get a rear naked choke, then come out in the second round, get taken down, and get submitted. I think Elise Reed is kind of that bulldog mentality. She's going to come forward. She's going to be wild. She's going to get in the face of Jinh Yu Frey and really just try to bomb away on her, land a good right hand, which we've seen her showcase before. Like I said, she has a good right hand over the top, decent 1-2, and the best shot from her is that power right hand in the orthodox stance. And she has decent grappling, decent ability to reverse positions like we saw against Loma Lookboonmee. But you have to think, Loma Lookboonmee is not known as a grappler. And even though she's not known as a grappler, she was able to take down Elise Reed in the second round, get her back, and submit her. No, now, Loma Lookboonmee is a phenomenal Thai fighter, a phenomenal striker. However, she's not known for her jiu-jitsu, and that was the first submission win of Lookboonmee's career in a fighter who has been out-grappled, out-wrestled, and really showcased that she doesn't know what to do if she's put on her back. She's kind of clueless, and that's not me hating on Lookboonmee. I'm a pretty big fan of Lookboonmee, actually, but she's not the best and not the smartest when it comes to the grappling side of the game, and she was able to take the back of Elise Reed and submit her after Elise Reed had a very successful first round with reversing position, working from the top, and being able to almost submit Loma Lookboonmee, take her back, and look like she was the much better grappler. In the second round, it was proven to be not the case because she got submitted early against a fighter in Lookboonmee who hasn't gotten submissions before. I think Jinh Yu Frey is more composed on the feet, but she has some chin issues. So if you think Elise Reed lands that big right hand and she's too reckless for Jinh Yu Frey and hurts her and puts her out, I don't blame you. But I do think that the more technical fighter is Jinh Yu Frey. I think that she will be able to use some grappling at certain points of this fight and potentially reverse positions, control Elise Reed, land the better shots on the feet, and be the better counter fighter. So this is a fight I would say to not bet on. This is the one I've heard people say 1-800-GAMBLER fight. This is the do not bet fight of the night. And I am going to go with Jinh Yu Frey to win this fight via a 29-28 unanimous decision. Again, going with the plus 115 underdog, but this is pretty much a coin flip like most of women's MMA at the lower level. I think either fighter can win. I mean, you got 6-3 versus 11-8. I wouldn't bet this fight, but I am going to side with who I believe to be the better technical fighter and the sharper fighter in Jinh Yu Frey. So give me Jinh Yu Frey to defeat Elise Reed via 29-28. I'll say split decision. I think it's going to be close. All right, and now we move to the next fight up on the card in a battle in the bantamweight division that we've already talked about before, in Daniel Santos, who's 11-2, going up against Johnny Munoz Jr., who's 12-2. Listen, I broke this fight down before, so if you want to hear a very in-depth breakdown of this fight, then I would go listen to my UFC 288 predictions podcast or check out my YouTube channel where I broke down how I feel like this fight's going to play out. Here's the deal. Daniel Santos is a killer-be-killed fighter. He's got that Charles Oliveira style of fight in him. He is the bantamweight version of Charles Oliveira with the blonde hair and everything. He marches forward. He gets in your face, light on the front leg. He's looking to land that big overhand right, the 1-2 down the middle, good uppercuts, solid clinch game, elbows, knees, landed vicious knees against John Castaneda after getting rocked multiple times. I mean, got hit with a high kick from the southpaw stance multiple times, got rocked, got hit with a straight left hand that rocked him. He looked like he was out on his feet at multiple points. But with that shoot the box style, and just like Charles Oliveira, you can hurt this guy, but you have to put him out. He's kill or be killed. If you do not kill Daniel Santos, he's going to get you. He's going to kill you. And he's going to come forward. He comes forward on Castaneda, gets him inside the clinch, after landing some big shots, walking him down, breaking him under the pressure, landing big shots inside the clinch, knees to the body, and elbows inside the clinch to get him out of there. I said clinch like 40 times, so forgive me. I'm trying to go through this breakdown a little bit faster. The better striker is Daniel Santos. You look at Johnny Munoz Jr., he's decent with his lead hand. A lot of the success from Johnny Munoz Jr. is off of the lead hand. He's very solid with his jab, very solid with his left hook, likes to land check left hooks and pivot off. Jabs down the center, left hook, jab, left hook, moving laterally, moving in and out. He's got good footwork. I think the better footwork in this fight does come from Munoz Jr. I think the better submission ability comes from Johnny Munoz Jr. as well, because most of his wins come by way of submission. He's going to be threatening submission attempts. He's going to be the better wrestler, but I don't think he's going to be able to out-scramble Daniel Santos. I think he's going to, get out-scrambled the longer the fight goes, but I do think he will get at least one takedown. So, if you're betting on something and you think that if you get a bet of who lands the most takedowns, I think that would come from the side of Munoz Jr. But I think on the feet, I don't think Johnny Munoz Jr. is a match for Santos at any point. He's got the better striking. He's more technical. He has the better power. He has more weapons, good knees, elbows, can land spinning back elbows, spinning back fists, knees to the body, knees up top, stepping in with that elbow right up the middle inside the clinch, going into the clinch, elbows, knees. 1-2 is good with getting that rear side angle like we've talked about against orthodox fighters. Rear side angle, boom. Land the right hand over the lead hand of the opponent. Land good shots to the body. Has a very solid left hook to the body. Good front kicks. Like I said, very Thai style-esque, very Shuto box-esque, kind of like Charles Oliveira, like we talked about, the bantamweight version of Oliveira. Likes to land those front kicks up the middle, knees to the body, work inside the clinch. Solid jiu-jitsu game. I mean, even if Munoz Jr. takes him down, he's going to get threatened with arm bars, omoplatas, triangle chokes. And I just don't see a way that Daniel Santos loses this fight unless he gets caught in a Hail Mary guillotine choke submission. Knock on wood that doesn't happen, because I'm pretty confident in Daniel Santos in this spot. I think he's going to hurt Johnny Munoz Jr. on the feet. Now, we've seen Santos get hurt before. We've also seen Johnny Munoz Jr. get knocked out by Tony Gravely, I believe. So he's been knocked out before. He's been finished. He's been put out. And I think Santos is eventually going to walk him down, put him on the back foot, get him on the pressure, wear him down, land the bigger shots, land the right hand, the left hook, the left shot to the body, the knees inside the clinch. I think he's going to hurt him, jump on him, and get a standing TKO where he's going to beat him up with a barrage of punches, knees, kicks, drop him, and get the finish. So I like Daniel Santos here. He's coming in as like a -220, -230 favorite at this point. And I don't love it, considering that when this fight was originally supposed to take place at UFC 288, it was Santos who had to pull out due to an illness. So maybe he's not coming in, at the best of his ability. Maybe he's not coming in to this fight 100%, but I think he will be. And I think even if he's not at 100%, he will be able to defeat Johnny Munoz Jr., because I just believe Santos is the much better technical fighter who has more weapons and who has good enough jiu-jitsu to hang with Munoz Jr. on the floor, where he can threaten submission attempts of his own. And the knockout upside, the finishing upside on the feet, the better striking, the better Muay Thai, that all goes to the side of the Charles Oliveira training partner and Shuto Box trained Daniel Santos. So give me Daniel Willie Cat Santos to win this fight via TKO in round 2. So second round TKO for Daniel Santos over Johnny Munoz Jr. And for a bet, I love Santos on the money line, and I also like Daniel Santos inside the distance or the under 2.5 rounds when those lines do become available. But give me the favorite in Daniel Willie Cat Santos to defeat Johnny Munoz Jr. via second round TKO. All right, Dontel Mays, 9-5-1 versus Andrei Arlovski, 34-21-2. Listen, I think, oh man, hold on. I lost my train of thought. Andrei Arlovski is, I believe, 6-2 in his last 8 fights or something like that. Let me see. Let's see. We'll go over here and we'll go to Andrei Arlovski. One, two. Yeah, 6-2 in his last 8 fights. His last 2 losses came to Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Tom Aspinall via rear naked choke in the second round, and Marcos Rogerio de Lima via rear naked choke in the first round. He beat Jake Collier via split decision, Jared Vandera by split decision, Carlos Felipe by unanimous decision, Chase Sherman via unanimous decision. And then he defeated Tanner Bozer via unanimous decision and Felipe Lins via unanimous decision. The wins over Bozer, Lins, and Carlos Felipe are pretty decent wins for Arlovski. He's got 17 wins by KO, TKO, 3 submissions, and 14 decisions. So 20 finishes, 14 decisions out of his 21 losses. He's been finished 14 times out of 21 losses. and 11 of those came by KO TKO, and 3 came via submission. If this fight goes to a decision, I think that Andrei Arlovski wins this fight. I don't see Dontel Mays being able to outstrike, outpace, outwrestle, and outgrapple Andrei Arlovski if the fight does go 15 minutes. I'm honestly surprised that Arlovski can even keep doing this at the age of 44. And not only that, but be on a streak of 6-2, where, yeah, he lost his last fight in October of 2022, but before that, his last loss came February of 2021. He was very active lately in his career as well, which is pretty impressive for how old this veteran is in mixed martial arts, but that's just what we mean. He is a veteran. Dontel Mays, he hasn't really impressed me that much. I mean, he has good power on the feet. He has decent kicking ability, good striking from range, 9 victories, 5 losses, 6 wins by way of finish, 3 by decision. And then he has 3 losses out of his 5 losses coming by finish as well. 2 of those by submission, 1 by knockout. He lost his last fight via unanimous decision to Augusto Sakai, and then he had the no contest against Hamdi Abdel Wahab at UFC 277, but he did lose that fight via decision. Before that, he TKO'd Josh Parisian in the 3rd round and then got a unanimous decision victory over Roque Martinez. Before that, rear naked choked in the 2nd round against Rodrigo Nascimento. And then before that, a heel hook submission loss to Cyril Gane in the 3rd round, but he did get to the 3rd round against Cyril Gane, so that is an upside for him. And then he had that knockout over Ricardo Pracel on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series Season 3 back in July of 2019. But in the UFC, he hasn't really been impressive at all. I mean, yeah, he got that TKO over Josh Parisian, but that's Josh Parisian. I mean, he lost to Gane, which doesn't look terrible because he did get to the 3rd round, lost the unanimous decision to Augusto Sakai. I mean, Dontel Mays doesn't really impress me, but he has decent striking. Like, he has decent kicks, decent power, but he lacks volume. He doesn't have the best cardio. Sometimes he will get into grappling exchanges where he does have decent control inside the clinch in the over-unders and pushing you up against the cage, but he doesn't really do much. He's not an active fighter. He has big power, and he looks to land that big power and put you out. Now, if you think this fight goes to decision, you would bet on Andrei Arlovski because, like I said, I don't think Dontel Mays wins the decision. However, we've seen chin issues from Arlovski. We've seen him have problems with his chin in the past. And even though I don't feel good about it, I think Dontel Mays will land a shot on the chin of Arlovski, put him down, and get him out of there. I know Arlovski's on a streak. He's gotten a lot of wins via decision, even though some of them are split. He's the more technical fighter, in my opinion. I think he's the better fighter overall. Definitely faced the better competition, vast experience advantage. But at this point in his career, I mean, eventually the chin just goes, and it doesn't look like it's gone yet. But if he gets caught with a big shot from Dontel Mays, I think he will get put down and put out. And Dontel Mays does have big power in the punches that he throws, and he has powerful kicks as well. So I'm going to go with Dontel Mays. I'm going to go with Lord Kong. I don't feel great about it. I don't feel the most confident about it at all. I'm not going to lie to you, and I don't like betting on heavyweight MMA. I think that betting on women's MMA, low-level women's MMA and heavyweight MMA, is the dumpster fire of MMA gambling. But I do think Dontel Mays will find the chin of Arlovski at some point early in the fight, hurt him, and Arlovski will not be able to recover at his age. Even though he's on a win streak, I still probably should pick him, but I'm not going to. So if you want to fade me here, I wouldn't blame you. But give me Dontel Mays by 1st round knockout. I think he catches Arlovski with a big shot, catches him cold, puts him down, and gets him out of there and improves to 10-5. But betting on this fight, yeah, absolutely not. No chance you bet on this fight. But Dontel Mays' 1st round knockout is going to be the pick. So give me Lord Kong against the Pitbull. Up next, we're going to move to the main card. All right, up next, we move to the main card. This was originally set to be on the prelims in the welterweight division between Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. In the records on this fight, we're going to have 17-3-1 for Nurmagomedov to 23-7 for Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. So 40 combined wins with 10 losses and 1 no contest. Pretty high-level records there for both fighters. But what you have to look at is that Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos hasn't fought in a very long time. The last time we saw him inside the cage was October of 2021. So it's been over a year, almost 2 years, about a year and a half since we saw him inside the cage. He did win his last fight against Benoit Saint Denis via decision. Before that, he lost a split decision to Muslim Salikov. Prior to that, he won a unanimous decision over Alexei Klinchenko, lost to Jingliang Li or Li Jingliang via third round TKO, beat Curtis Millender via submission, Luigi Vendramini by knockout, Sean Strickland by knockout. So yes, he did knock out Sean Strickland with a wheel kick back when Strickland fought at welterweight, but that's not a surprise considering that his nickname is Capoeira, which Capoeira is like I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's like the art of movement in fighting. You know, very, a lot of spinning kicks, wheel kicks, a lot of upper trunk movement, torso movement, and a lot of wild wheel kicks, spinning kicks, and a lot of free-flowing movement is the best way I could describe Capoeira, but even though that explanation wasn't the best either. Going up against Abubakar Nurmagomedov, Alizé Zaleski dos Santos is the much better striker. Like, if this fight stays on the feet, I think Zaleski has the power to knock out Nurmagomedov. I think he's going to land the better combinations. I think he's a lot sharper on the feet with his punches, his kicking, his clinch game. Like, he's going to be the much, much better overall striker on the feet. But if the fight hits the floor, I know Alizé Zaleski dos Santos does have a jiu-jitsu black belt. I believe he has submissions in his career. He has good control, but he's not going to be able to out-wrestle Nurmagomedov. I know that's not because he's related to Khabib Nurmagomedov, but he is able to employ heavy wrestling, heavy grappling, heavy top control. And if you look at his last fight against, hold on, his name is escaping me here, but 17-3-1. Out of those 17 wins, he's got 10 finishes, 7 decisions. Out of his 3 losses, they're all coming by way of finish, 1 KO, 2 submissions. Lost to David Zawada via triangle choke, which doesn't look the best. Lost to Pavel Kush via rear naked choke before that, and then got knocked out by Magomed Mustafayev back in September of 2014, but that was a doctor stoppage. He's coming in off 2 wins, a unanimous decision over Jared Gooden, and then a unanimous decision over Omar Gadzhiev. The Omar Gadzhiev fight was extremely high level. A lot of grappling, a lot of scrambles, a lot of, working for positions on the ground, out scrambling. And just the thing with that fight was Nurmagomedov was able to wind up in top position and able to out scramble Omar Gadzhiev. It was an extremely high-level fight, a very close fight, but he was able to out-scramble him. He was able to push the pace later into the fight and be able to wind up in top position, superior position more often than his opponent. And I think that's what we're going to see here against Dos Santos. He hasn't fought in almost 2 years, and I know ring rust isn't always a factor for every fighter, but I think that we're going to see a depleted version of Dos Santos. Who do I think is the better fighter? I think Dos Santos is the better fighter, but the better fighter doesn't always win the fight. And I think that we've seen issues with his grappling against Benoit Saint-Denis. Yes, Saint-Denis slowed down. Yes, I mean, he was beating the tar out of him, was Dos Santos, in the second and third round, hurting him with multiple shots, hurting him with shots to the body, big punches, big knees, these good kicks. Like I said, Dos Santos is the much better striker, but he had issues with the takedown attempts, the wrestling, and the control of Benoit Saint-Denis in that first round. If he's having issues with the control and wrestling of Saint-Denis, he's going to have issues with the wrestling, the grappling, the top control of Abubakar Nurmagomedov. He's going to have issues with the wrestling, the top pressure, the scrambling ability, the relentless takedown attempts. And I think that's what we're going to see in this fight. I think we're going to see Alizé Zaleski dos Santos have some moments, land the better strikes on the feet, land some big shots. He'll probably hurt Nurmagomedov at a certain point, but he's going to rush in and get countered with counter takedowns and counter wrestling and get out grappled, get controlled from the top, get grounded and pounded. I think he will have some success. Maybe he goes for submissions of his own because he does have a black belt in jiu-jitsu and he is a competent submission artist in his own right. So I think we will see him throw up submissions, look to submit Abubakar. Maybe he gets close on a couple of attempts, but I think at the end of the day, Nurmagomedov will out-scramble him, wind up in the top position more often, get more takedowns, and slow down Dos Santos in the second half of that second round and into the third round. And I think he will eventually lock up a submission in a scramble against Dos Santos. So I am going to side with Abubakar Nurmagomedov to defeat Alizé Zaleski dos Santos via third round rear naked choke submission. I think he tires him out in that third round, is able to dictate that wrestling early and often, slow down Dos Santos, who's coming in off a layoff. He gets into a scramble. He eventually gives up his back and gets caught with the rear naked choke. So give me Abubakar Nurmagomedov to defeat Alizé Zaleski dos Santos via third round club and sub rear naked choke submission. Even money on the fight, but I am going to side with Nurmagomedov here. Up next, we're going to move to a fight in the women's flyweight division between Karine Silva and Ketlin Souza. Ketlin Souza comes into the fight with, I believe, a record of 13-3 on the side of Karine Silva. We're going to have a record of 15-4. Very high level records on both sides between Silva and Souza. But overall, from what I've seen, I think at kicking range, or just outside of kicking range, Ketlin Souza is the better fighter. I feel like she has better kicks. She likes to fight on the outside and use her kicks, whether it's spinning kicks to the body, front kicks, side kicks, round kicks, inside and outside low kicks. She likes to keep the opponent at a distance and land the bigger kicks, land the sharper kicks, and use that to set up her takedown entries, to set up her jiu-jitsu entries with leg locks, working in the Ashigarami game, working in to get sweeps, working to the top position, going for leg locks, going for arm bars, working to take the back. Sometimes she'll roll into getting submissions. She'll go to a butt scoot in a clinch position and look to sweep your feet. Go for not a scissor sweep, but a stack guard sweep, I guess is what you would call it. But she is a decent fighter. But overall, I think the sharper fighter is Karine Silva. I think she has a big speed advantage against Ketlin Souza. I think she's going to be the faster fighter on the feet. I think she has better boxing. Ketlin Souza has decent power in her hands, but I just think she's very slow when it comes to her striking. And I think that the speed is going to be the biggest advantage for Karine Silva. I think she's going to be able to land the better combinations. She's going to have the faster punches and kicks on the feet. She does have good submissions of her own right. I mean, we saw her catch her last opponent in a Darce choke and get her out of there literally within ticking seconds of the end of the first round. But she has decent striking on the feet, good punches, good boxing, good kicks. But I think the better kicker is Ketlin Souza when it comes to kicking from a technical perspective. I think the overall more kick-heavy game plan is going to come from Ketlin Souza to fight on the outside, get Karine to brush in, and then get the takedowns, look to land submission attempts, look to, play into the jiu-jitsu game, or make Karine Silva play into the jiu-jitsu game of Ketlin Souza. She is dangerous. She does have good striking with her kicks. She does have dangerous submission attempts with arm bars, triangles, sweeping you to get to leg locks. That Karine Silva is going to have to mind her P's and Q's. She can't go reckless into a grappling match against Souza because she could get caught and get submitted. But I think the better fighter, the more technical fighter, is Karine Silva. I think she's faster on the feet. I think she has the more damaging strikes. And I think the speed is really going to play into factor here when breaking down the fight. I think it is close in terms of skills, but I think the speed of Karine Silva and her overall finishing ability, or just when she smells blood, she'll go for it on the feet. I have to side with Karine Silva here. So give me Karine Silva to defeat Ketlin Souza via a second round TKO. I think she's going to close the distance eventually, cut down that kicking range, making it harder for Souza to get to those takedowns, set up the takedowns under the comfortability she needs to really execute her game plan. And I think she will close the distance, land the bigger shots, and eventually get into a position where she hurts Souza, ground and pounds her, and gets her out of there. So give me Karine Silva to defeat Ketlin Souza via a second round TKO victory. All right, and up next, we've got a battle in the flyweight division between a huge talking point of the MMA community in terms of, personal life and what he's brought to the light lately. In the number 11 ranked flyweight and former Ultimate Fighter winner who challenged Demetrius Johnson for the flyweight title in Tim Elliott, going up against the buzzsaw powerhouse and overall wild man. It's two wild men going against each other here against Victor Altamirano. I think this fight is pretty questionable when it comes to a betting perspective, when it comes to making a pick. Because who do I think is the more technical fighter? Tim Elliott. Who do I think is the overall better fighter? Tim Elliott. Who do I think has the better jiu-jitsu? Tim Elliott. Who do I think has the better striking? Tim Elliott. But look at Tim Elliott's recent personal life. Look at his personal issues. I know a lot of people don't like to bring personal issues into breaking down fights, but when your wife was cheating on you like throughout your entire marriage, cheated on you on your wedding night, and then you say yourself you almost didn't make it to fight night because of all the personal issues and things that you were dealing with. You had to go on, and check with, people sending you messages and being supportive, saying you almost didn't make it and you didn't know what you were going to do. And listen, I'm not knocking Tim Elliott for any of that stuff, because going through anything like that is awful. So I mean, I can't knock him for that, but that's going to weigh heavily on the mental side of Tim Elliott. And the thing is, people are going to say it's going to make him get more motivation. He's going to want to run through Victor Altamirano. He's going to be thinking about, Gina Mazzani and Kevin Kroom, because I didn't mention their names before. He's going to be thinking about that when he goes into the fight, and he's going to walk through Altamirano. That is possible. He might come in here with so much anger and so much drive and determination from what recently happened to him, and he might just walk through Altamirano, because I do believe Tim Elliott is the sharper fighter. I think he is better. He's fought the much better competition. He's cleaner, sharper on the feet. He has better footwork, better angles, better defense. I think all those things are true. But at the same time, with the personal issues, with the awful situation that he went through recently, getting divorced, knowing that your wife cheated on you throughout the entire marriage, like stuff like that is going to weigh on you mentally, and it might not make you fight to the best of your ability. He might be overly aggressive, which is going to play into the game of Victor Altamirano, who is an aggressive fighter, who's a forward pressure fighter, who lands big hooks, big uppercuts, big kicks, has gotten rocked in his fights, can get hurt, come back, hurt the opponent. He's going to land volume. He's going to land big power. He's going to walk you down, land kicks, land heavy volume. They're pretty similar between the two. Like, this is going to be a high volume fight. This is going to be high pace. This is going to be a violent matchup between Elliott and Altamirano. And Elliott's the better fighter. But in this situation, with the things that he's gone through recently, I can't side with Tim Elliott. And maybe you want to fault me for that. Maybe you think that, I'm not breaking the fight down from the best technical perspective, and how could you not pick Tim Elliott? I'm not picking Tim Elliott because of the personal things he's been going through. I think he's going to come in angry. I think he's going to come in motivated, but I also think he's going to come in having everything that recently happened to him weighing on him heavy. I know he's thinking about that day and night. I know he's thinking about that every single day. And I know that whatever that is going to hurt him. And that may destroy a lot of men. And I think we're not going to see the best version of Tim Elliott. We're going to see an over-aggressive. We're going to see just an angry Tim Elliott inside the cage. And I don't think he should take this fight, because I don't think he's in the right place mentally. Some people can use these issues and build themselves up to use it as fuel and fire and come out and destroy the opponent. That might be what we see. But I don't think that's what we see, because Altamirano is okay in getting into those brawls. He's okay in using that to land his counter wrestling, to land big ground and pound, to be able to walk you down with big punches, big kicks, decent combinations on the feet. He's not that technical. He's not that clean. Nothing Altamirano does looks pretty, but he can get hurt, come back, hurt you, walk you down, land big shots. And I think he's eventually going to catch Tim Elliott on the chin and then ground and pound him into a TKO victory. I just can't pick Tim Elliott because of what he's gone through in his personal life lately. So give me the underdog in the plus 145 or plus 150, Victor Altamirano, to defeat the number 11 ranked Tim Elliott via a second round TKO victory. If there was no personal issues on the side of Tim Elliott, if he wasn't going through what he went through recently, and it was just full camp, no distractions, no nothing, I would side with Tim Elliott all day. But that's not what we're dealing with here, and you have to look at that when you break down the fight. And I do not think that Elliott is in the correct mental space to take a fight against a guy who isn't going to be afraid to get into those wild exchanges, who isn't going to be afraid to get into those aggressive, wild, drag him out, dirty, nasty fights. And that's what you have in Victor Altamirano. So give me the plus 150 underdog in Victor Altamirano to defeat Tim Elliott via second round TKO victory. Siding with another underdog here. All right, up next, we move to a lightweight battle, a battle in the lightweight division between UFC veterans in Jim Miller and Jared Flash Gordon. 35 wins, 17 losses on the side of Jim Miller, 19 wins, 6 losses on the side of Jared Flash Gordon. First, we're going to talk about Jared Gordon and the fact that just over 6 weeks ago, he was knocked out cold by Bobby King Green. And yes, it was a no contest. Yes, it was due to an accidental headbutt, but he knocked him out. And it's not that he got TKO'd. It's not that he, wasn't with himself. He wasn't fully in it. He was knocked out cold, and he got hit with big ground and pound shots, suffered a concussion without a doubt. And that was back only in April of 2023. It was less than a month ago, or a little over a month ago, when he got knocked out. Yes, it was a no contest. Yes, he looked good, was outboxing Bobby Green, landing the left hook, landing the check left hook, the 1-2-3, the jab left hook, the cross left hook, the 2-3, the 1-3, the 1-2-3. Yes, Jared Gordon has a vicious left hook. He has very solid boxing, good footwork, good defense, good counter ability, 100%. But he got knocked out in the fight against Bobby Green. Yes, it was a no contest. Yes, it didn't count against him, but he got knocked out with a headbutt and then got followed up with about 3 or 4 ground and pound shots that put him out cold completely. Said himself that he suffered a concussion. He took this fight on short notice, said that he was 193 pounds. Actually just said this today. He was 193 pounds when he got the call to fight Jim Miller at 155 pounds. I believe this fight is not a catch weight. It is a 155-pound fight, yes, in the lightweight division. But at the same time, he got knocked out less than a month ago, or a little over a month ago, 6 weeks ago. He was knocked out cold. No, did he lose the fight? No. Was it a no contest? Yes. Did he look good before that? Yes, but that doesn't matter. Jim Miller has power in his hands. He can sit people down with his right hand, his 1-2. He's got power in his punches. And with Jared Gordon coming into this fight with a literal knockout less than 6 weeks ago, or about 6 weeks ago, I don't think he's going to get past Jim Miller, and I don't think it was smart for Gordon to take this fight. I think he took this fight based on ego because he feels like he was doing well against Bobby Green, and he wants to show that he wasn't a flash in the pan, and that, you know, that performance against Paddy Pimblett, he should have won it. He was doing well against Bobby Green. Like, I feel like Jared Gordon came into this fight because he has a chip on his shoulder, and he has something to prove. But against the veteran in Jim Miller, who has finishing ability, who can still go with most of the guys in his division, not like the top of the heap, but still go with guys much younger than him, has good finishing ability, good submission attempts, good power. You know, that's what Jim Miller has. And against Jared Gordon, if there was no issues, no previous knockout, no contest, no nothing, I think Jared Gordon would win this fight. But again, like we talked about with the Elliott and Altamirano fight, that's not what we have here. And I think Jim Miller is going to catch Jared Gordon on a chin that's not fully healed after getting knocked out with that headbutt in the ground and pound by Bobby Green back in April. You know, he's not fully healed from that knockout, and he has said he got a minor concussion. He's not the real, full, healthy Jared Gordon coming into this fight. And against the savvy veteran with the experience of Jim Miller, who has good striking ability, who has good power, who has good submission attempts, I think he's going to catch Jared Gordon on the chin, hurt him, and get him out of there. And I think he does it pretty early because we have a Jared Gordon coming in who's coming in off a minor concussion. That's not good. And he got knocked out, like we've already said multiple times. So if there was no issues and nothing to worry about, then yes, I would 100% side with Gordon. But like I said, that's not what we have here. So I'm going to pick Jim Miller to finish Jared Gordon. I think he's going to catch him with a big overhand right, rock him, and TKO him, or potentially rock him, drop him, and get a sub. But I'm going to go with a TKO. So give me Jim Miller to defeat Jared Flash Gordon via a first-round TKO. I think he gets him out of there early. I don't think Jared Gordon should take this fight. I think he took this fight for the wrong reasons. I think he took this fight because of his ego, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So in this case, with Jared Gordon not coming in at 100%, I'm going to go with the plus 160 underdog and Jim Miller to finish Jared Gordon. I mean, like I said, he just said that he was 193 pounds when he got the call on short notice. He's fighting at 155 pounds. That almost a 40-pound cut, plus recovering from a minor concussion. Yes, it was a minor, not a major, not a terrible concussion, but still a concussion and still a fight where, yes, it was a no contest, but you got knocked out. So give me Jim Miller to catch Jared Gordon on a chin. Like I said, that's not fully healed yet. Drop him, jump on him, and get him out of there. Jim Miller, Jim A10 Miller to defeat Jared Flash Gordon via first round TKO as the plus 160 underdog. All right, and now we move to what I believe to be the best fight of the night aside from the main event, and it should be since it's the co-main event of the evening in the featherweight division between the number 15 ranked man channeling the glow in Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres taking on Daniel Pineda, or Daniel Pineda, however you want to say his name. This is a close fight, and this is going to be a dog fight. Alex Caceres is doing things that I don't think a lot of people pictured him being able to do at this point in his career. He's coming off that head kick knockout against Julian Juicy J. Erosa. You know, you always have to worry about the durability of Erosa, and he threw that straight left from southpaw, stepped off on an angle, delayed the timing, and then followed up with a delayed head kick on the same side as Erosa leaned right into it. dropped him, jumped on him, and got the TKO in the first round. 3 minutes and 4 seconds in the first round. That was a fight I was very confident in Julian Erosa, and Bruce Leroy Caceres shut me up. And when I say his record is unassuming, he's 20 victories, 13 losses. So almost like a 50-50 record. He's got 11 wins by way of finish, 9 by decision. Out of his losses, 7 losses by submission, 1 by KO, and 5 by decision. Most losses coming by way of submission. But in his recent fights, I mean, Bruce Leroy is 6-1 in his last 7 fights. He's got a unanimous decision win over Steve Peterson, a unanimous decision over Chase Hooper, rear naked choke submission in round 1 against Austin Springer, unanimous decision against Kevin Kroom. We just talked about him. A rear naked choke submission in round 2 against Sang-Woo Choi, which is a fight where, again, I picked against Bruce Leroy. A unanimous decision loss to Sadiq Youssef in a competitive fight, but he did clearly lose that one. And then the TKO in the first round with the head kick, the straight left into the delayed same side head kick as Erosa slips off the center to avoid the punch. He gets hit with the kick on the same side, and it had delayed timing. So the reaction, I mean, he just didn't see it coming. But Bruce Leroy is on a tear lately, and this is a guy who many people had written off years ago, and he looks the best he's ever looked. I mean, he was on the Ultimate Fighter season with Josh Koscheck and GSP as the coaches. Just think about that for a second. GSP and Josh Koscheck back in 2010, I believe. So 13 years ago, this guy was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he's still fighting in one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC with wins over respectable opponents and losses to respectable opponents as well. Going against Daniel Pineda, I think that this fight is going to have a similar, feeling to the Andre Fili fight, where Daniel Pineda, it was a no contest, but I knew his nickname was the Pit. I was going to say it, but I thought I was wrong. Daniel the Pit Pineda, 28 victories, 14 losses. 9 out of those 14 losses come by way of finish, but out of his 28 wins, Pineda's never won a decision. So if this goes to the scorecards, more than likely Alex Caceres is going to be landing the bigger shots, landing the bigger kicks, probably high kicks, body kicks from southpaw, front kicks up the middle, decent punching combinations. Like if it goes to decision, expect Alex Caceres to win this fight. And if you think the fight does go to decision, then you would bet Alex Caceres by decision if you're on that side. Out of his losses, he's lost 5 by decision, 6 by submission, and 3 by knockout or TKO. So 9 losses by way of finish, and all 28 wins come by way of finish. 19 out of 28 wins come by way of submission. 9 victories by KO, TKO. He's coming off a fight where he was a pretty sizable underdog, almost a 3-1 underdog against Tucker Lutz, where he won via second round guillotine choke submission. A wild fight. They were both landing big shots, a lot of scrambling, a lot of grappling, a lot of reversals of positions, and eventually Pineda caught Tucker Lutz in that guillotine and got him out of there in the second round. Prior to that, the Andre Fili fight, which was an accidental eye poke, no contest, but he was catching him with brutal high kicks, punching combinations, multi-shot combinations, 4, 5, 6 punch combinations, punctuated with a kick at the end of it. It was the best performance that Andre Fili has had in his entire career, and he was on his way to finishing Pineda 46 seconds into the second round, but he lost that fight via a unanimous or a no contest, even though he didn't lose it, but it was a no contest. But, Fili and Fili and Bruce Leroy are pretty similar in many approaches. Like thinking back to how they fight, a lot of the success that Fili had was with the kicks. The kicks of Bruce Leroy are going to be faster. They're going to be coming at better angles. They're going to have more of a snap on them than a traditional Muay Thai kick. He's more traditional martial arts based. He's going to be looking to snap those round kicks, snap the front kicks. Even when he threw that left cross into the same side high kick, he threw it from such an awkward angle. It was kind of like how Carlos Condit landed the 1-2, rolled underneath, and came up with the lead side high kick. It was a 1-2 step off, but he kind of delayed the timing and then threw it up with his hip at an awkward trajectory and banged Julian Erosa on the chin. And the reason that it landed was because Erosa couldn't see it. I think that Pineda could have issues with seeing the big kicks, not the wind up kicks, but the snappy kicks of Alex Caceres, and I think there is a possibility he catches him with a head kick and puts him out. But when I look at the records and I see that Pineda is such a decorated jiu-jitsu artist, yes, Caceres can grapple as well. He has submissions on his record. He has good grappling ability, good scrambling ability, but I don't think he's going to be able to grapple with Pineda. I think Pineda is going to be able to close that distance, get to the hips, take down Caceres, get into some decent scrambles where maybe he threatens, Daniel Pineda with some submissions off of his back, gets close, threatens him with some submissions. But at the end of the day, I think Pineda is going to be the one who winds up in the top position towards the midpoint of the second round. And I think he's going to wind up in the top position, get Caceres to give up his back. He's going to flatten him out, land some vicious ground and pound, and lock up a rear naked choke against a guy in Caceres who, like I said, doesn't have the most assuming record, but out of those 13 losses, he's got 7 of them coming by way of submission. So a little over half of his losses, over 50% of his losses are coming by way of sub. So think about that against a decorated grappler. And even though I said that Caceres has grappling in his own right, I don't think he's going to be able to out-grapple a guy with the top pressure and submission ability of a Pineda, who also has good striking on the feet, good boxing, and good power on the feet as well, to where he might catch, Caceres with a big punch and knock him out. In boxing range on the feet, I give the advantage to Pineda. Kicking range, it's all Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, but I can't side with Bruce Leroy here, and I have to be the show enough to the Bruce Leroy, but this time with the villain, getting the upper hand. So give me Daniel Pineda to eventually get those takedowns working, get in the top position in round 2, get Caceres to give up his back, and lock up a rear naked choke submission. Daniel Pineda to defeat Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, or should I say Daniel the Pit Pineda to defeat Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres via a second round club and sub rear naked choke submission. All right, and now we move to the main event of the evening in the UFC's flyweight division between Kai Don't Blink Kara France, who's ranked number 3 in the flyweight division, coming in with a record of 24 victories and 10 defeats, going up against the somewhat UFC newcomer, but the 7th ranked flyweight, the finisher, whether it's knockout or submission, in Amir the Prince Albazi, who comes in with an unbelievable professional record of 16 victories with only one lone defeat. But I'm pretty sure it's 15-1, if I'm not mistaken. No, it is 16-1. Yeah, so 16-1 for Amir Albazi. The only loss coming to a guy who used to be in the UFC, in Jose Shorty Torres, via decision. He lost that fight back in April of 2019 at Brave CF 23 via unanimous decision. But Torres was landing big shots on the feet. He was hurting Albazi. He didn't get him out of there, but he did beat him. And then out of his 16 wins, he's got 14 out of 16 victories by way of finish, 2 wins by way of decision. The only loss was that decision loss to Jose Shorty Torres. But Amir Albazi, when it comes to competition level, it's nowhere near the competition level of a Kai Kara France. In the UFC, he's faced guys like Malcolm Gordon, Zolga Sumagulov, Francisco Figueiredo, and Alessandro Costa. I would say the best fighter he faced on this list would be Zolga Sumagulov, followed by Alessandro Costa. In my opinion, he won his UFC fights via triangle choke in the first round, unanimous decision against Zumagulov, rear naked choke in the first round against Figueiredo, and then a knockout via uppercut off that level change feint against Alessandro Costa in his last fight in December of 2022. Amir Albazi is good, and against Kai Kara France, he's going to have the better grappling. He's going to have the better wrestling, the better top control, the better submission ability, the better ability to control the fight if he's able to get the takedowns against Kai Kara France. However, Kai Kara France may have had questionable takedown defense earlier in his UFC career, but at this point in his UFC career, he has very, very good takedown defense, to the point where, Askar Askarov, who was considered to be one of the most well-rounded fighters and a future champion in the division, where Kai Kara France was like a plus 350 underdog, he was able to stuff almost every single one of those takedowns in the second and third round. Yes, he did get taken down early, got his back taken, got the body triangle put in, was put in some very questionable positions, threatened with a rear naked choke, but was able to defend it and also able to defend the takedowns the later the fight got. The longer the fight went, he was able to stop the takedowns of Askar Askarov and defend them. Against Brandon Moreno, he was able to defend, I believe, almost every single one of the takedowns against Moreno in that fight as well. When you look at his overall takedown defense, it's at an 87%. Takedown accuracy is at a 25%, but I mean, we know that Kai Kara is not really going to use his wrestling offensively. It's more used defensively. Takedown averages per a 15-minute fight, it's going to be 2.47 for Albazi. He's going to go for almost 3 takedowns per a 15-minute fight, which could mean that he gets 1 takedown and is able to control you from the top for the remainder of the round. So it's about 1 takedown a round. 1 takedown every round is about what that averages out to, but he only has a 50% takedown accuracy rate with a 66% takedown defense. I don't think we'll have to worry about the takedown defense of Albazi as much as we'll have to worry about the takedown defense of Kai Kara France here, but he's so good with the takedown defense that I think it's going to be hard for Albazi to be able to get those takedowns unless he's able to catch a low kick of Kara France, catch a body kick and get a takedown, a trip takedown, or time the low kick or body kick and come over the top with an overhand and then use it as like a sweep, but dropping him off the impact of the punch to catch the kick, fire a combo or fire a shot, and then get the trip takedown or the knockdown off of that and work from the top position. If Kai Kara France is put on the bottom against Amir Albazi, it is going to be trouble for him. Albazi's going to be the better grappler. He's going to have the better top position. He's going to have the better ground and pound. He's going to have the better submission upside. However, on the feet, yes, I think Albazi's good. He's a good 1-2, good hooks, really solid step and uppercuts, which is going to worry me against Kai Kara because he has, a problem with, covering up high and kind of ducking his head at certain points. But he uses a lot of fakes and feints to set everything up. And I think the fakes and feints and setups of Kai Kara France are going to give Albazi a lot of trouble. I think Kai Kara France is the much, much better technical fighter. I think Kai Kara France has faced the much better competition. But at the same time, Albazi hasn't been in the UFC for nearly as long as Kai Kara France. So you have to look at it at that as, Albazi hasn't gotten the opportunity to face this high-level competition yet, and he's getting it with Kai Kara France. Yes, Kara France has been in there with the likes of Moreno, Pantoja, you name it, he's fought them in this division, Askar Askarov, Brandon Royval. But at the same time, Amir Albazi hasn't had the opportunity to face that high-level competition until now. So this is a big test and a litmus test for Kai Kara France. But so far, he's passed the eye test. He has good striking, good counters off that rear side angle, good counters off the back foot, a good jab. Everything that Albazi throws, he has pretty good power. He's pretty defensively aware. I feel like he's able to guard up high and counter pretty good, decent counter ability, really solid uppercuts, good low kicks as well. He kind of lands that good calf kick, but I don't think he's going to want to go low kick for low kick against City Kickboxing, Kai Kara France. The better timing is Kai Kara France. The better combinations is Kai Kara France. He's very good at peeling your high guard down. So if you're using a traditional high guard, he'll touch, peel down the hand, come over with the overhand, pum, 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 peel it down, hook, uppercut, boom, 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 peel it down, hook, overhand. He's very good at guard manipulation, peeling your guard down. He mixes up his levels, uses a lot of level change feints. He's one of the most technical strikers. He might be the most technical striker in the flyweight division. And if the fight stays on the feet, aside from him getting caught with a big shot and hurt, which we've seen Kara France get hurt before, we saw him get hurt with a spinning back elbow from Brandon Royval after he rocked him with an overhand. He rushed in, boom, got caught with a spinning elbow, got dropped. We saw him get finished with that switch kick to the body against Brandon Moreno. So he has issues to the body. So I think we might see the Prince and Amir Albazi, or Amir the Prince Albazi, look to use the jab, follow up with the straight right hand to the body, jab, left hook, maybe a right body kick, chop the low kick, jab, feint the right hand, land that left hook to the body, 2 left hook to the body, try to dig it in, land knees to the body if Kai Kara France tries to close the distance. But I think it's more going to be Albazi trying to close the distance and push Kai Kara France back, which is kind of going to play into the game of Kai Kara. But at the same time, he's a good counter striker. He has good backstep counters, but at the same time, he's not the best when he gets pressured. He's better when he's able to kind of make the reads, find the timing, and find the openings to land his cleaner shots. The cleaner fighter on the feet is 100% Kai Kara France. but he has trouble getting pressured in multiple fights. We've seen him get pushed back. And if you're able to bully Kai France and back him up, he has trouble. He only really does his best work when he's in the driver's seat, when he feels like he has the momentum, when he's able to sap the life out of you, take the cardio out of you, push you back, and land the bigger shots. That's when Kai France does his best work, when he's in the driver's seat. If you're pushing him back, if you're landing the bigger shots, if you're hurting Kai France isn't going to wilt, but he will slow down on the volume, and sometimes he will give up those rounds, like you saw in the first fight against Brandon Moreno in the second and the third round, and you saw in the last fight, in his last fight, coincidentally, against Brandon Moreno for the interim flyweight title at UFC. I believe it was UFC 2, what was it, 277? I think 277, until he got caught with that switch left kick to the body, right in the liver, dropped and finished in the third round. I believe it was the third round. But at the same time, like, I think Cara France is the better fighter. I think he's fought the better competition. I think the fakes and feints and the ability to mix up the levels in the striking is going to be the biggest problem for Amir Albazi. Albazi has good striking. He has good technique. He has a lot of power, but Kai France mixes it up. He changes the tempo. He's able to manipulate the guard. He's able to touch, pop, touch, pop, touch, bing, bing, bing. He goes 1-2 and then pops you with the jab to reset you. Bop, bop, boom. He'll go 2 and then pop you with the jab instead of the traditional 1-2. He's got good hooks, good counter left hooks, good low kicks. I think he's just the more well-rounded fighter, and judged off the fact that Cara France does have vastly improved takedown defense, I don't think it's going to be that easy for Albazi to initiate his submission game and his grappling game, but we have seen Kai France get submitted in his career before. Out of his 10 losses, he's been finished 6 out of 10 times. Out of his 24 wins, 14 wins by finish, 10 wins by decision. Before he lost to Moreno, he was on a 3-fight win streak with wins over the likes of Rogerio Bontorin, Cody Garbrandt, and Askar Askarov. Knocked out Cody Garbrandt. Beautiful performance against Askar Askarov, and then lost with the body kick in the third round to Moreno. Before that, he lost via guillotine choke in the second round to Brandon Royval. So got submitted by Royval via guillotine. Lost the decision to Moreno in the first fight. Then got submitted via rear naked choke by Mark Striegel back in October of 2014. And then submitted with a Darce choke against Gustavo Fascioli back in May of 2014. So back-to-back submission losses, and then that guillotine choke submission loss to Brandon Royval. But I think when it comes to a pick, this is a very high-level fight. This is kind of a 50-50 fight because I see a lot of areas where Albazi can have success. I think the power of Albazi can give Cara France trouble, but I think the technical ability of Cara France, the ability to change up the timing, the guard manipulations, the peeling he likes to use when he throws his shots, peeling the opponent's guard down, and the ability to make reads throughout the fight and be the more technical and patient fighter, I think that does go on the side of Cara France. The experience advantage is on the side of Kai Kara, but again, this is the toughest test of Albazi's career, and he's passed all of his other tests in his career as well. So this is really going to tell us where Albazi fits, where the Prince fits in the trajectory of the top in the flyweight division. But when it comes to a pick, I am going to side with the number 3 ranked Cara France. I think he's going to be able to outstrike Albazi. I think he's going to slow him down in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I think eventually he's going to land a big combination. He's going to make him wilt. He's going to land a big shot, drop Albazi, and get him out of there. So give me Kai Don't Blink Cara France to defeat Amir the Prince Albazi, handing him his first loss in the UFC via a 3rd round TKO. Actually, you know what? Yeah, 3rd round TKO victory. I could see a clean knockout, but I think Kai Cara France has too much experience, and he's way better technically. And with his improved takedown defense, I think he gets Albazi out of there. So give me Kai Don't Blink Cara France to defeat Amir Albazi, handing him his first loss in the UFC via 3rd round knockout victory. All right, that's going to be it for my UFC Vegas 74 Cara France versus Albazi preview, predictions, and breakdown. This podcast will be available on all audio podcast platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Stitcher, and many, many more. It's also going to be broken down and uploaded into individual fight predictions, or potentially just a long breakdown episode on my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Have a good night, everybody, and enjoy the fights this weekend.